For the first time in 15 months, I am optimistic about the war in Gaza ending. This has to be heavily caveated though. There's a huge amount that can go wrong, but this week the first step to a real end to the hell over 2 million people have been going through was actually taken. It came when Israel backed down, a rare occurrence, I agree. It let through the tents and mobile homes that it was withholding in open contravention of its commitments in the first phase of the ceasefire agreement. What forced that climb down after a week of bellicose statements from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the US President Donald Trump promising to unleash the dogs of war is yet unclear. It could be a combination of factors. Hamas vowing to complete the next stage of the hostage release on Saturday, increasing pressure from the families of the hostages, Shin Bet debriefings from the released hostages which revealed that there were more hostages alive than they originally thought. Or it could be that Netanyahu and Trump both realised they couldn't bully or browbeat Egypt and Jordan into taking 2 million Gazans, which would be expelled from Gaza. I want to concentrate on the last point. Between them, Trump and Netanyahu made two big mistakes in the interviews they gave around the Israeli Premier's visit to Washington. Trump made Netanyahu's real war aims US policy. This was to empty the Strip of its entire population. Of course, Israel has tried repeatedly throughout the course of this 76-year conflict to do just that. But for a US president to actually say he will empty Gaza and not let its inhabitants back is a real example of how to shoot yourself in the foot. Far better from Trump or his son-in-law Jared Kushner's point of view to let Gaza's harsh conditions squeeze the population out over time. But no, the religious fanatics of the Zionist right, which form the brains behind Trump and Kushner, want victory now, and they can't restrain themselves. The second big mistake was for Netanyahu to insult Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who he has spent much time courting. Netanyahu went out of his way to humiliate him. He told Channel 14 that a secret alliance between the kingdom and Israel had been in operation for 3 years. Revealing a secret alliance with a country that doesn't recognise you can only embarrass your partner, even though he's half under the table. He then said that if Saudi Arabia wanted a Palestinian state, it could host it on its land. Then Netanyahu went on to say that when Israel had smashed Hamas, the axis of resistance, bombed Iran, Arab leaders like bin Salman would come to him on bended knee. Peace in the region would only come through Israeli strength, Netanyahu said. This is too much for a Saudi leader to take. Each and every step in the strategic plan Netanyahu laid out in his Channel 14 interview is a threat to the kingdom. The mass expulsion of 2.2 million Palestinians would not only deal an existential threat to Jordan and Egypt, the Palestinian migration would inevitably become Saudi's way. An Israeli bombing campaign on nuclear sites in Iran would invite retaliation around the Gulf, and Saudi's oil installations would be the first to feel the impact of Iranian drones, as they have done before. The threats by Trump and Netanyahu were a wake-up call to Riyadh. Before the Hamas-led attack on Israel, the Crown Prince had inched ever closer to putting his signature on the Abraham Accords. Even after the attacks, Saudi Arabia maintained business as usual. For 15 long months, no pro-Palestinian protests were tolerated, and the festivals continued while Gaza wept. Even raising a Palestinian flag or praying for Gaza by pilgrims at Mecca was banned. Neither the death toll in Gaza, nor the invasion of Lebanon, nor the military operation in the occupied West Bank changed the Saudi line. And yet it took only 45 minutes after Trump had bragged that Saudi Arabia would normalize with Israel without a Palestinian state for bin Salman to issue a statement in the middle of the night, vowing that his commitment to a Palestinian state was non-negotiable. Within a few days, a second statement had been issued, condemning, and I quote, "the continuous crimes committed by the Israeli occupation against the Palestinian brothers in Gaza, including the ethnic cleansing they are subjected to." In a matter of a week, Saudi foreign policy had reverted back 5 decades to the Arab nationalism of King Faisal. All Trump and Netanyahu's patient work in constructing a trade alliance with the Gulf states called the Abraham Accords had been undone. Until this week, Netanyahu had been telling bin Salman and Mohammed bin Zayed, the president of the United Arab Emirates, that he would deal with them as allies. Now he was saying he would impose peace on them by force, that the Abraham Accords were not a partnership of equals, and that the Arabs would come crawling to him when he had conquered all. Bin Salman was not the only Arab leader Netanyahu and Trump had insulted. King Abdullah of Jordan was forced to endure the ritual of a reality TV fireside chat with Trump without being able to publicly disagree with him. He later put out a series of forthright tweets about Jordan's refusal to countenance a mass transfer of Palestinians, but the damage had been done. He was made to look weak. A few people in DC who know about Jordan all said it was not in US interests to humiliate the Hashemite dynasty on which America depended. This must have percolated through the thick wall of the Oval Office, but the next thing Trump did was to film an address in which, without any context, he praised the people of Jordan and their brave king. There are a few clear lessons to be learned from the mayhem cooked up by Netanyahu and Trump and their religious Zionist fanatics. The first is Arab unity. When Arab leaders stand firm and speak with one voice, Israel has no alternative but to listen. They all meet in Riyadh at the end of the month. They need to come up with a credible plan for the reconstruction of Gaza. Once formulated and presented, Arab nations have to force it through. Trump and Netanyahu have created a very strong, angry Arab front. It must be maintained. The second lesson is that there is an opportunity for Saudi Arabia to resume its historical role as the leader of the Arab and Muslim world. It doesn't mean abandoning its strategic policies. It means making sure that Israel and America respect them. They might just do that this time because they know their backs are to the wall if they allow Greater Israel to expand unimpeded. The third lesson is that Palestinians can overcome through sheer gut instinct and determination the massive physical forces exerted to expel them. They can defeat the bombs simply by continuing to exist on their land. If Gaza can do it, so can Palestinians everywhere. The optimistic scenario is that the ceasefire holds until a credible reconstruction plan is created in Riyadh, and then war will have ended with or without Israel's consent. The pessimistic and frankly more likely scenario is that Netanyahu restarts the war after he gets all the hostages out that he thinks are still alive. But then who and what are the targets of renewed warfare? Warfare the first time round was total. What more can they do? It will require determination and nerve to face this threat down. But events this week have shown it can be done.